We got Marvel canceled Chris Evans movie announcement. Yeah, yeah.
Let's go get this son of a bitch.
Welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year. Marvel just revealed that they're bringing Chris Evans back for Avengers 5 along with Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor
Of
Doom.
course they
Probably
are.
all the original Avengers, including Black Widow, who died. There
Apparently.
was a recent report about that, too. But more interesting, buried deep in the announcement was the fact that Marvel had canceled a planned movie they were going to make for Chris Evans and Haley Atwell set right after the events of Avengers Endgame. So it's basically a lost version of Captain America 4, like the original version
Bruh.
of Captain America 4. Because the movie would have taken place before he comes back to the present at the end of Avengers Endgame
returning
and
the
passes the
stones or what?
mantle to Falcon. The news raises more questions than it answers. I know people are asking, why didn't they just make the movie? It sounds like it would have done gangbusters if they released it right after Avengers Endgame. So many of the Marvel movies right after Endgame felt all over the map in terms of quality and meeting fan expectations for what people
Exactly,
were
bruh.
expecting to happen right after Avengers Endgame, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Pretty soon we're going to have a Captain America movie and a new season of Daredevil at the same time. Suddenly it feels like we're all the way back during Captain America Civil War period again. It was so much fun making videos for the Daredevil Netflix series, cannot wait to do that again. But if you didn't see the news recently, when the
Gonna
trades
be
were
on
reporting
Disney
on
Plus
Chris
now,
Evans'
though.
new contract at Marvel, it was sort of tied up in him coming back for Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, part of him coming back as Johnny Storm in that movie was also him coming back for Captain America stuff. But he's not coming back in Avengers 5 as the main Steve Rogers Captain America from the 616 Marvel Universe, like, not Old Man Cap. And he's not coming back as his Johnny Storm from Fantastic Four and Deadpool and Wolverine. He'll be a Steve Rogers from an alternate universe, and most
Hydra.
likely part of an evil Avengers team formed by Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. We don't know every single
that's gonna
character
be
that's going to be on that team.
cooking
It just
so
won't be the
hard,
same
bro.
original 6 Avengers, but evil versions. Like, it's not going to be a one-to-one copy-paste. There'll probably be some deep-cut characters that we haven't seen in the MCU yet on that team.
Hopefully.
But within that announcement, buried deep, the trades reported that Marvel had tried to and failed to make another solo movie for Chris Evans and Haley Atwell. They'd wound up canceling that movie. It would have been set after the events of Avengers Endgame, but before he comes back to the main timeline as Old Man Cap, having lived most of the remainder of his life with Peggy Carter in that alternate timeline. They've been developing it before Avengers Endgame came out, and they were
Bro,
planning
they
to
should have
release
just
it
done
soon
it.
after Avengers Endgame. So remember, the pandemic delayed everything multiple times, so if they had still wound up making the movie like they planned, even with all the delays, they probably would have wound up releasing it in 2020, around the same year they released the Black Widow movie, another legacy character getting a movie after Avengers Endgame. The only difference there is that instead of retiring her character, they killed her off during Endgame. Marvel's reported reason for canceling the movie is that they couldn't come up with a compelling enough story. So there are a couple untold stories that we know of for Captain America's character inside the MCU right now.
Everybody
There's
wanted
the
to see him
original
return
canceled
to
plot for Captain America
Infinity
Civil War
Stones.
before
That's all
they
they had
brought
to
in
do.
all the other Avengers characters and turned it into an Avengers 2.5 movie with
They
like
could even do
Spider-Man,
like a
Iron Man, everybody
series.
else. The original story for that was not that good. Like, the premise for the original version of that was not that hot. So no big loss if they ever go back to that original storyline. The only real untold Captain America story they could have done with both Chris Evans and Haley Atwell playing their same characters, because they said that Haley Atwell was going to be a main character during the movie, her Peggy Carter, that would have not trampled on the plot of Avengers Infinity War and the ending of Avengers Endgame. A lot of you probably guessed this, would have been if they made a movie about Captain America returning the 6 Infinity
Bro, that would have
Stones.
cooked.
Doesn't that feel
Everybody
like an
wanted
easy
to watch
slam
that.
dunk kind of movie? There were actually some Easter eggs in the background for what was going on during this. So during Falcon and Winter Soldier, in episode 1, you see Falcon walking through that Captain America exhibit at the museum with Rhodey, now confirmed to be Skrull Rhodey. During that scene in the background, you can see the details of all the Avengers missions through Infinity War and Endgame in the 5-year time jump. Like, everything that happened laid bare for the public to know. So, like, the world knows everything the Avengers did with all the time travel. They know that Captain America returned the stones. In the way they refer to it in all this language, that this is in the museum, the public can see, is Cap's final mission. Like, his final mission to return the stones. You also have to remember that he was returning Thor's hammer during that too. I think the only thing that wasn't included in like all that museum language that like anybody and their sister could walk in and read about the Avengers doing was that Captain America stayed in the past of that alternate timeline, living a life with Peggy Carter before he came back. I think the idea is that in the MCU, the public is only meant to know that Captain America went as a young man, but then returned as an old man. So most people probably just assume that the mission to return the stones took him so long, that's why he returned as an old man. They kind of dug into this whole concept during Falcon and Winter Soldier, where Torres was grilling Falcon on what really happened to Old Man Cap. Like, we know he's back. Where did he go? Did he retire to the moon base? So that's why there's all these conspiracy theories in the MCU about what really happened with Captain America. Just because they didn't tell them the full story about him staying in the past and then coming back to the future.
I guess he's an old
so
man.
Marvel's only real choice here for a big enough movie that would have warranted Chris Evans coming back, Haley Atwell being a main character during it, them being the young versions of their characters that fans were also asking to see, like demanding that they tell them the story of this would have been the story of him returning those Infinity Stones. Most of you probably remember right after Avengers Endgame was released in theaters, Marvel had just started announcing that Disney Plus was a thing. They were going to be releasing shows like WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, the next few movies that had been announced. So everybody kept asking, why don't they tell the story of Captain America returning the stones? So you have to remember, in Marvel's canceled movie, they were planning on Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter being a main character, meaning she'd be in most of the movie. So the only way to tell that story and have her be a main character is if she went along helping Captain America through the entire movie. And the only way logically that would make sense is if they also went back to Camp Lehigh in the 1970s to return the Tesseract and stole more Pym particles, enough for her to use, so that Captain America would still have the one to return to present day after they were all done. So really the easiest way to make this all happen would be if his first stop was to go back to Peggy Carter, tell her what he was doing, get her help, and then they go to Camp Lehigh second and get more Pym particles while they're returning the Tesseract. Then go on to return the rest of the stones.
To the spot where he was in the movie's
basically their adventure is they face their villain trying to return each of the stones. Remember, they'd also have to introduce a brand new villain too. They couldn't just reuse Thanos for this. Taking the Mind Stone back to the events of the first Avengers movie before the Hydra agent showed up to grab it from the Avengers, taking the Reality Stone, planting it inside Jane Foster while she was still passed out, and returning Thor's hammer to the events of Thor the Dark World, basically. Taking the Time Stone back to the Ancient One, also during that same Avengers time period, on the other side of town from the Sanctum Sanctorum. She was one of the few really understanding people who knew that they needed the stones and trusted them to bring them back. And they could have just left him returning the Soul Stone as the last one so that he'd finally be faced to confront the Red Skull at the end of the movie in a really twisted reunion. After Infinity War and Endgame and all that Red Skull coming back, everybody wanted to see what a Captain America reunion with him would be like. Like, how would he react to Red Skull? You remember the way the Russos and the writers explained it, Red Skull had basically been sentenced to serve as the protector of the Soul Stone for the rest of time. So he'd basically been trapped there after a lifetime of searching for the stones after he'd been transported by the Tesseract at the end of the Captain America First Avenger movie. So here's where we actually get to the villain of this mystery canceled Chris Evans movie. It could have been a younger version of Red Skull, the version who was still looking for the Infinity Stones across time and space before he'd been killed and been sentenced to be the protector of the Soul Stone. There's still a younger version of Red Skull traveling all over time and space searching for the Infinity Stones. You just have that younger version of Red Skull learn what Captain America is doing at some point and chase him down stone to stone, trying to steal them all from him. Then have Captain America and the younger Peggy Carter kill Red Skull. Then he's sentenced to become the protector of the Soul Stone. Then you can have him jump back to the future where he's supposed to return the Soul Stone to, and he's confronted with the ghost of Red Skull, who he just killed minutes ago in the past. So you can also use that canceled Chris Evans movie to close Red Skull's loop, his untold story in the MCU. So that the next time you watch Avengers Infinity War and Red Skull's like, I wound up here after a lifetime of searching for the Infinity Stones, and that just winds up being him fighting Captain America across time and space for the stones and failing. Now remember, reportedly the reason why Marvel canceled this movie is they said that they couldn't come up with a compelling enough story that felt like it would have been better than Avengers Endgame. It wouldn't trample on the ending of that movie. It wouldn't feel too derivative of Avengers Endgame. Like they didn't want to make Endgame 2.0. And on paper, a lot of Captain America's final mission to return the Infinity Stones does sound like you're just replaying parts of Avengers Endgame from different camera angles. Like they didn't want the whole movie to feel like just a bunch of deleted scenes from Avengers Endgame sewn together. Now, the upside
They
is that
could have
even though
took it a
Marvel
different way.
canceled this Chris Evans, Haley Atwell movie, they didn't say that they'd never tried to make another one. But I think him coming back for Deadpool and Wolverine and coming back for Avengers 5 is sort of meant to fill the void in whatever his contract would have originally been. But all this new plot for Avengers 5 and Avengers 6 Secret Wars is meant to be completely different.
Bro, I
And
can't
the news
wait.
about him
It needs
coming
to
back
hurry
is
up.
only for Avengers 5, not for Avengers 6 Secret Wars. Nobody's really talking about Secret Wars yet. So it is possible that he's done after Avengers 5 and doesn't come back for Avengers 6. We'll see
Bro, I
about
wish I knew
that.
someone in the
Supposedly they're
film
doing something
industry.
similar
I
with
could be there
Avengers 5 and
for a little
Avengers
bit.
6, where like a lot of characters only appear in one movie, but not both movies. Only a couple characters are in both movies. But everyone post all your reactions in the comments below. What do you think they should have made this
Bro, I
canceled
thought
Chris
that was a
Evans movie
statue.
about if he was still going to be playing a version of
Well, a
Captain
wax
America
thing.
and they didn't want to trample on the end of Avengers Endgame or have to retcon anything? They're supposed to start filming Avengers 5 really soon, and we're going to get Captain America 4 in theaters really soon too. We will see if they reference what happened to Old Man Cap during that movie before we see him come back as a young version of Cap from another universe. I just did a much bigger video about him coming back in Avengers 5 in the alternate evil versions of the character that he's going to likely wind up playing. Click here for that. And click here
Hydra,
for my new
Captain
Daredevil
Hydra.
Born Again trailer. Thank you.
That's gonna be it for today, though. Thanks for watching.